Recognizing the member for Abbotsford West.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. First, I would like to just mention to the community of Tumbler Ridge that our thoughts and our prayers remain with you as we conduct our business here in the House, and we continue to advocate for long-term services and supports for the community in Tumbler Ridge. Also want to thank the residents of Abbotsford West. I remain grateful for your support to represent all of you here in Victoria. Well, Budget 2026 was a tough pill to swallow. British Columbians are asking a very simple question, Madam Speaker. Where has all the money gone? In 2022, this province posted a surplus from more than $5 billion. Today, we're facing a record deficit exceeding $13 billion. In just a few short years, we have gone from strength to staggering red ink. Our total debt is projected to reach $182 billion this year and $234.6 billion by 2028-2029. That is more than tripling the debt since this government formed government under the previous NDP Premier. Interest payments alone are projected to reach nearly $9 billion annually. Just think about that for a moment. Just paying interest on fiscal irresponsibility is costing British Columbians $9 billion annually. The third largest line item in government spending. And members across the aisle are proud of this budget? That's $24 million every single day just to service the debt. By 2028-2029, that will cost $1,520 per British Columbian, up from $532 in 2016-2017. Well, you know, like the member from the Green Party mentioned, you know, creating a deficit may not be bad. Well, let me ask some question. After all this borrowing, all this spending, all this growth in government, what are the outcomes? Well, let's measure them. Are British Columbians safer today? No. Crime has worsened. In many communities, we're hearing it on the news every single day across the province. Are our downtowns in our urban areas healthier? No. Many are struggling with disorder, with vandalism, and shuttering their storefronts. Is our population growing in British Columbia? In other words, are people coming to this wonderful province where we're spending all this money? No. In some regions, it's actually declining, and people are heading east to Alberta and to other provinces. Are our jobs flourishing? No. Private sector growth is weak. Investment is actually leaving the province, and business confidence is eroding. So again, British Columbians and myself are asking, where has all the money gone? Well, let's look at record spending, record debt, and record disappointment. Government spending has exploded from $52 billion in 2017 to nearly $98.8 billion today, a 90% increase in less than a decade. The bureaucracy has grown dramatically, tens of thousands of additional full-time equivalent positions over the past decade, yet this budget now proposes cutting 15,000 FTEs without any credible or transparent plan. What's the plan? Have services improved proportionate to those hirings? I don't think they have. People are telling me they're on the phone. They're getting constantly blocked with bureaucracy. So adding all those people into the public sector has not improved services. Have wait times shortened? We're adding all these middle management pieces in our hospitals. How are the wait times increasing? Have projects delays disappeared. Well, I don't think so. I think we just opened up a bridge that was $1.8 billion over and 2 years late. No, so that's not happening. Since 2017, capital projects have seen $17.3 billion in cost overruns. $17.3 billion in cost overruns. Can't blame that all on Trump. And 158 cumulative years of construction delays. 158 cumulative years of construction delays. Projects that once had timelines are now simply marked TBC, to be confirmed, or to be cancelled. We don't know. We don't know. So British Columbians are paying more and getting less certainty. While accountability is now under threat, this budget quietly eliminated the office of the Merit Commissioner, the independent watchdog that ensures public service jobs are awarded on merit and not political loyalty. It was not highlighted in the budget. It was not prominently disclosed in lockup materials. So the question is, why eliminate independent oversight now? At a time when spending is at its record levels, when debt is skyrocketing, and when trust in institutions matter more than ever, this government is scrapping the very office designed to ensure fairness and accountability. The only jobs that seem to have a clear plan to cut are the ones that hold this government to account. Then there's the billion-dollar tax hike on families. The Minister of Finance herself admitted in her speech, families are stretched beyond the cost of living. Or should I say, families are stretched by the cost of living. Yet what does this budget deliver? Any relief? Any help? Any sticks of carrot? Anything? No, a $1.1 billion tax increase on working families. $500 million in provincial income tax increases, including on those in the lowest income bracket. $600 million through bracket creep and indexation freezes, PTSD expansion to professional services, shoe repair, clothing patterns, landlines, cable, and more. Who does this target but families? When they're already, as the finance minister said, families are stretched by the cost of living. Now they're adding costs, not relieving costs. When times are tough, families repair their shoes instead of buying new ones. They fix, mend, and stretch every dollar. And this government taxes that effort. Shame on them. Seniors living on fixed incomes are being told to absorb new costs. Small businesses paying for private security after repeated vandalism will now pay 7% or more on those same services. So first of all, government is supposed to protect people. They're supposed to set up municipalities with police to protect business owners and homeowners. And here they're now taking matters into their own hands, and now they're being taxed on that. This is not affordability relief. It's a $1 billion shakedown of British Columbians. Now let's bring it home. I live in Abbotsford. So the Abbotsford Chamber of Commerce gave me some notes, and here we go. The Chamber of Commerce is the voice of more than 800 businesses across our region. And I rise today to speak candidly about Budget 2028 as it relates to our region and our community in the Fraser Valley and for the economic future of British Columbians. Let me begin with a simple truth. British Columbia is at a fiscal crossroads. Nobody's denying that. Budget 2026 acknowledges pressure. No one's denying that. It acknowledges global uncertainty. That's been a couple of years, but it hasn't been 9 long years. It acknowledges slowing growth. But what it does not yet provide is a decisive, credible, and comprehensive plan to restore fiscal balance and materially improve competitiveness. Businesses understand difficult trade-offs. They do it every day. They make hard decisions to keep their doors open. Every employer in Abbotsford has to make hard decisions over the past several years, navigating inflation. They can handle that. Labor shortages, yeah, they're working with that. Supply chain disruptions, they're finding ways. They're very creative. And rising borrowing costs. What they need from government now is clarity. They need a government that is disciplined. And they need a credible growth agenda. Instead, what Budget 2026 presents is a record $13.3 billion deficit, substantially higher than previously forecasted, with annual deficits remaining above $11 billion across the three-year fiscal plan. Provincial debt is projected to rise from approximately $154 billion to roughly $235 billion by 2028-2029. Let that sink in. $154 billion. You know, we throw these numbers out like they're nothing. They're just big numbers. Ooh, it's just way out there. $154 billion to $235 billion. That is $85 billion. That trajectory represents one of the most dramatic debt expansions in the province's history. We've never been here before. And while the government describes this budget as leaner, the structural imbalance remains firmly in place. The plan to reduce 15,000 full-time equivalent positions across the broader public sector is largely expected to occur through attrition and retirements over time. This is not structural reform. It is a gradual adjustment within a much larger fiscal challenge. At the same time, debt servicing costs are rising materially as interest payments consume a growing share of revenue. Fiscal flexibility narrows, and every dollar spent servicing debt is a dollar not available for infrastructure, not available for housing, not available for healthcare expansion, not available for economic development in high-growth regions like our Abbotsford here in British Columbia. Credit rating agencies will assess this path carefully. With no defined timeline back to balance, further downgrades remain a credible risk. And this is what I want. I think this is coming sooner than we think, that our credit rating is going to drop, and nobody is going to want to invest in this province. The risk translates into higher borrowing costs, which only compounds the challenge. This is not theoretical. It is measurable. The province is leaning heavily on comparative GDP performances as reassurances. Real GDP growth is forecast at 1.3% in 2026, rising to just under 2% in subsequent years, mid-pack nationally. But modest growth below historical norms does not materially improve productivity. It does not meaningfully expand wages. It does not restore affordability, and it does not resolve structural fiscal pressures. Growth at that level maintains the status quo. It does not change the trajectory. And I think British Columbians were looking for something in this budget that would say, you know what, there is a horizon we're aiming for. There is something that we're going to get done in the next couple of years. What do we got? Status quo. We just want to make sure the boat's not going to sink. There's no hope in this budget for British Columbians. And if British Columbia is serious about restoring fiscal health, we must grow faster than our debt. We must expand productivity. We must attract capital. And we must compete aggressively for investment. We have none of that in this budget. That requires more than incremental measures. Budget 2026 introduces several tax changes intended to stabilize revenue. The base personal income tax rate increases to 5.6%. Income tax bracket indexation is temporarily suspended. The provincial sales tax is expanded to professional services, including accounting. So now, my wife who does accounting at home, when she sends out a bill, guess what? Engineering, architecture, geoscience. You know, those are construction-related professions, and we're going to create affordable housing. I'm trying to figure that out. It doesn't work. Property management and certain commercial real estate services. Property-related tax increase, including higher speculation and vacancy tax rates for foreign owners, increases to the additional school tax or higher value properties, and the introduction of home flipping tax. For businesses, the expansion of PAT's professional services is particularly consequential. All these taxes on accounting, engineering, architectural, geoscience, property management, and certain commercial real estate services are particularly consequential for the Fraser Valley. It raises input costs by 7% across multiple sectors. Manufacturers will pay more for engineering services. Developers will pay more for design and architectural services. Farm operators and processors face higher compliance and advisory costs. Property managers and commercial landlords face additional expenses that ultimately flows through to the tenant. Who will pay for all this? The end user. And we're going to create an environment where people want to invest, where people want to buy, where people want to get a mortgage, where people want to get a house. It doesn't make economical sense. These are not abstract increases. They are direct cost pressures in an already competitive labor and investment environment. Noting the hour, Mr. Speaker, I reserve my place and move adjournment of debate.
Recognizing the member from Abbotsford West.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Before I continue on with my speech that I started with yesterday, I just want to remind everyone in the House and also everyone in British Columbia to continue praying for 12-year-old Maya Gabella, who is fighting for her life in Children's Hospital here in Vancouver. We stand with you, and so does all of British Columbia stands with Tumbler Ridge at this time. I want to continue my response to the budget from the Chamber of Commerce from Abbotsford. And it raises that 7% across multiple sector tax. I said yesterday that manufacturers will pay more for engineering services, developers will pay more for design and architectural services, farm operators and processors face higher compliance and advisory costs, property managers and commercial landlords face additional expenses that ultimately flows through to the tenants. So what this is saying is that the end user will pay for this. These are not abstract increases, they are direct cost pressures in an already competitive labor and investment environment. At the same time, the suspension of bracket indexation reduces disposable income for households, placing additional pressures on wage expectations and consumer spending. When government raises costs broadly while growth remains modest, competitiveness erodes. Continued infrastructure investment supporting goods movement in the Fraser Valley corridor is absolutely essential, according to the Abbotsford Chamber of Commerce. For Abbotsford, positioned to lead in manufacturing, agriculture, aerospace, and transportation, these measures absolutely matter. But they are not a comprehensive growth strategy. They are targeted supports layered onto broader fiscal framework that remains structurally imbalanced. We must also speak plainly about regional impact. A project that would have provided 200 long-term care beds in Abbotsford is among 7 projects placed on hold. That's 200 less seniors that will find care, and we know what's happening to the baby boomers. They're aging out. In a fast-growing community with demographic pressures, this is deeply concerning, not only for Abbotsford, but these other long-term care beds that have now been permanently mothballed. When fiscal constraints force delays in essential infrastructure, the cost is borne locally by families, by seniors, by employers who rely on strong community services to attract and retain workers. Abbotsford is ready to lead. We are strategically positioned along key transport corridors. We're home to one of the most productive agricultural regions in the country. We have advanced manufacturing capacity. We have aerospace expertise. We have a growing population and an entrepreneurial culture. But to unlock that potential, the province must focus in on 4 main pillars. Pillar number 1, productivity. Pillar number 2, regulatory efficiency. Pillar number 3, strategic infrastructure. And pillar number 4, fiscal sustainability. Prosperity is not funded by debt. It is built by growth. The Abbotsford Chamber of Commerce will continue to advocate for a credible timeline towards fiscal stabilization, not indefinite deficits. We will advocate for regulatory modernization and faster permitting. Businesses cannot wait years for approvals in a globally competitive environment. We will advocate for the workforce development alignment with industry demands, including increased per-student funding for post-secondary institutions in the Fraser Valley and beyond. Our region must train and retain the talent required for expansion, like all other regions in the province. If we do not invest in local post-secondary education in different regions, we will lose the students that are being trained and equipped to supply the needs in the industry in that region. They will leave and they will not come back. We have to support local institutions in our regions across the province. We will advocate for modernization of agricultural land reserve regulations to enable greater industry competitiveness and address the shortage of industrial land, while preserving the agricultural productivity that defines Abbotsford's region. We will advocate for strategic infrastructure investments, including flood mitigation and the expansion of Highway 1, projects that directly support economic resilience and goods movement across Western Canada. And we saw what that did in the 2 floods we previously just had. It stops the movement of goods and services far beyond the Fraser Valley into the interior. We provide goods and services. Highway 1 provides goods and services for the whole province. This is not about partisanship. It's about trajectory. Budget 2026 reflects a government navigating fiscal constraint while attempting to preserve services. But preservation is not the same as progress. At a time of record deficit and rising debt, British Columbia cannot afford incrementalism. We need a decisive, disciplined, pro-growth strategy. The Fraser Valley stands ready to drive that growth. Our businesses are resilient. Our entrepreneurs are innovative. Our workforce is committed. What we need now is a fiscal and economic framework that matches that ambition. British Columbia's prosperity will not be secured through expanding taxation and sustained deficits. It'll be secured through productivity, competitiveness, and disciplined management. Budget 2026 does not address this. It falls short. The Abbotsford Chamber of Commerce will continue to be the voice of business, advocating for policies that build growth, restore balance, and ensure that our region and our province thrive for generations to come. Well, let's talk about health care. 42% of British Columbians say it's difficult or impossible to access non-emergency care normally handled by a family doctor. In 2025 alone, there were 250 temporary ER closures across the province. This budget contains no new transformative plan to address those closures. Shame on them. 6 long care homes have been delayed. 6 long-term care homes have been delayed. Abbotsford, Campbell River, Chilliwack, Delta, Fort St. John, Squamish, pushing desperately needed beds years into the future, if not mothballed altogether. Mental health funding sees no new expansion beyond previous announcements, and even cuts within the Ministry of Children and Family Development. Meanwhile, interest payments continue to grow. Let me just share with you some thoughts on Abbotsford Regional Hospital. What is happening today in Abbotsford Regional Hospital should alarm every person in this House. Budget 2026 does nothing to alleviate the pressures at Abbotsford Regional Hospital. This is not a temporary surge. This is not a one-off bad week. This is a systemic failure unfolding in real time in Abbotsford, and patients are paying the price. Abbotsford Regional Hospital is operating at over 100% capacity, reaching as high as 128%. Doctors tell us the hospital is bursting at the seams. Patients are being treated in hallways, alcoves, closets, and waiting rooms. Not because it's appropriate, but because there's nowhere else to put them. This is what frontline physicians are calling hallway healthcare. Up to 40% of patients are placed on non-designated care areas. Patients are using commodes in public view. Conversations about diagnosis, treatment plans, end-of-life decisions are happening with earshot of strangers. I would like everybody in the House to put yourself in that. You're in a stretcher. You're in a hallway. You're vulnerable. You're discussing personal, private, sensitive information with people all around you who can hear every single word that is spoken. Shame on this government. Speaker, this is not dignified. It is not safe. It is not acceptable in a developing country. Budget 2026 ignores Abbotsford Regional Hospital needs. Doctors report 90% of the admitted patients are waiting up to 114.9 hours, nearly 5 full days in the emergency department before getting a bed. Some patients wait even longer. Emergency rooms are meant to stabilize patients, not warehouse them. For elderly patients in particular, these prolonged stays are devastating. Doctors describe rising rates of confusion, delirium, falls, pressure ulcers, infections, and poor long-term outcomes simply because patients are trapped for days on stretchers in loud, crowded hallways. Where is the commitment from this budget for the Abbotsford residents? One physician with over 30 years of experience says this is the worst congestion he's ever seen. Others say, and she leaves every shift carrying moral distress. Her words are heartbreaking, and I quote, "My heart is broken. These are not conditions you would expect to see in a developed country," end quote. Speaker, when doctors and people trained to endure pressure say they are demoralized, we should listen. Budget 2026 remains silent as doctors wait for supports. This crisis is being driven by 3 clear failures: not enough beds, not enough staff, not enough space for rapidly growing and aging Fraser Valley population. The hospital has 275 acute care beds, yet an average of 347 patients need those beds. That gap is filled with stretchers, hallways, and makeshift care spaces. Yes, Fraser Health points to alternate level of care patients. Yes, winter surges add pressures, but these explanations do not absolve responsibility, they underline it. We have known for years that the Fraser Valley is growing. We have known for years that the population is aging. We have known for years that Abbotsford Regional Hospital is a no-refusal regional referral site. And yet, here we are. Budget 2026 has ignored these pressures. Staffing shortages compound the problem. Nurses are stretched beyond safe ratios. Burnout is rampant. The back door, Mr. Speaker, is as big as the front door. Yes, we're attracting people, but we're losing them just as fast. One nurse is often responsible for far too many patients, creating a work environment that doctors themselves describe as demoralizing. Speaker, when healthcare workers burn out, patients suffer, and the system loses the very people it needs to recover. And yet Budget 2026 increase in healthcare costs does nothing for the region. I could go on. I have pages and pages of things that I could talk about with regard to Budget 2026. But I just want to make a few closing comments with the 48 seconds I have left. There was an opportunity here to aim for something higher. There was an opportunity here to give hope to British Columbians. There was an opportunity to give hope to businesses. There was an opportunity here to give hope to families. And this budget fell short. It took away hope. It demoralized people. And it's shameful that this government can stand up and applaud a budget that is deplorable. That's why I will not support this budget, and I will continue to speak out with the faults that it presents. Thank you very much.